What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. As always, keeping you updated on all the latest pro wrestling news. And on today's coverage, we got everything that went down on this week's Friday Night SmackDown, with a major matchup getting confirmed as we are headed into WrestleMania and the next pay-per-view. And as always, we are also covering all the latest news. So hit it now, boy, drop, turn on those notifications, and let's dive right into it. And let's start off with a bit of a scare, a major botch that WWE ended up giving out on SmackDown, as they accidentally advertised Roman Reigns versus Goldberg at WrestleMania, and everybody started losing their mind. It was obviously a mistake, but it did went down. So Roman Reigns was supposed to face Goldberg at WrestleMania last year, as we know, but things didn't turn out as planned. But it looks like WWE hasn't forgotten about it just yet, because for some reason they display a text on the bottom of the screen this week during SmackDown that promoted the canceled WrestleMania Universal Championship match. This was when Apollo Crews was getting ready for his match and shown in gorilla position right before that, with the text indicating still to come live on SmackDown, Roman Reigns versus Goldberg, WrestleMania continues. We obviously have no idea why WWE ended up displaying that text. They must have been messing around with something and maybe checking out the graphics from last year's WrestleMania and trying to change it to something else, even though, as we know, the graphic for this year's WrestleMania, it's almost the same as last year, just with a little bit of variation. Because this year's WrestleMania, we are set to be getting Roman Reigns versus Edge. Regardless though, this is interesting because WWE production usually don't make these type of mistakes. And it's even more weird the fact that it was just plain text, kind of ready to go and actually shown to us on TV when they definitely didn't mean to. Anyways, WWE, please do not be scaring us like that anymore. As I mentioned before, I'm okay if you give us the match, but don't give it to us at WrestleMania. Now, while we are on the topic of the Universal Championship and also WrestleMania, we got two major matches being confirmed tonight during SmackDown. This week, we had Daniel Bryan challenging Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship at Fastlane, in which he had to face on Jey Uso on SmackDown this week to get it. And WWE is gonna build towards that, as that is the title match that they're planning to give us to main event that show, with of course the winner of it going on to WrestleMania to face on Edge. The next major matchup that we ended up getting is Bianca Belair finally making her decision on who she is going to face, either Asuka from Raw or Sasha Banks from SmackDown. This one was kind of obvious that WWE was gonna go the SmackDown route of it, and I'm definitely excited for it. I think it is the match that most people are looking forward to for Bianca Belair, so her picking Sasha Banks is definitely exciting. Onto some unfortunate news, WWE booked a non-title singles match between John Morrison and the new United States champion Matt Riddle on this past Monday's episode of Raw. Latest reports from the Wrestling Observer Radio has been indicating that John Morrison suffered a knee injury during the match, and the injury happened when he did a twisting dive at one point and caught his leg in the ropes, which resulted in him landing with his knee hitting the floor. The referee checked on John Morrison, who continued the match and finished it, but by the end he was limping. Later on in the show, we saw John Morrison coming out, and he was definitely walking slower and limping next to the WWE champion The Miz. As of right now, there's no word on how big this injury is, and we don't necessarily know if he will have to miss any time in the ring. But even if he does need to take time from in-ring competition, chances are that WWE could still have him appear in segments while he recovers. Considering that he was able to walk it off and still participate in the segment afterwards, it does feel like he's not gonna need any major surgery and just need some time to heal up. Who knows, maybe by next week, Monday Night Raw, he's already back to normal. After all, it is John Morrison parkour all the way. As for what went down on this week's SmackDown, on the February 26, 2021 episode, the show started off with Roman Reigns basically telling Edge to back off, which hardly made any sense because over the last couple of weeks, all that Roman Reigns been telling Edge is that he needs to choose him for WrestleMania. Anyways, tonight Roman is just indicating the following, and I'm not too sure why exactly WWE ended up booking this promo like this. Nonetheless, all leads to Daniel Bryan coming out, telling Roman Reigns that he is a coward, especially after what he did at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, coming out right after Daniel Bryan went through that insane match. This leads to Daniel Bryan challenging Roman Reigns at Fastlane for the Universal Championship. Jey Uso is right there. He doesn't like the proposition, so he goes on to attack Daniel Bryan to end the segment. And then they all walk it off laughing. In the backstage, we see Edge coming to talk to Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville because he's not necessarily too happy that Daniel Bryan is getting a Universal Championship match before him, because apparently they were supposed to have a tag team match at the event instead. We go on to Otis and Chad Gable picking up a victory against Rey Mysterio and Dominic as Otis continued to show his aggressive side. Apollo Crews is getting a bit of a change. He came out cutting an awesome promo and was just fired up for his next match, in which he went on to defeat Shinsuke Nakamura in one-on-one competition. And I'm officially calling Apollo Crews Apollo Big Scarf Crews. It might be a slight change, but this could be really good for him. He got that more fire in his character, and I'm definitely liking it. They are of course still building towards an Apollo Crews versus Big E match once again. Big E is still recovering from last week. We get Tamina accompanied by Natalya defeating Liv Morgan with Ruby Riott. We then go into the big decision for Bianca Belair. Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville introduce her. All of this leads to Reginald interrupting. Reginald once again kind of advocating for Sasha Banks. Then Sasha comes out. Sasha says to Reginald that he does not need to speak for her. Sasha then kind of take on the role of Roman Reigns, basically telling Bianca Belair that if you want to be in the big match at WrestleMania, you have to pick her. And Bianca pretty much says that she's gonna prove she's the best and that yes, she picks her. Next we get the Street Profit defeating Sami Zayn and Baron Corbin. Sami Zayn really thought it was a good idea for him to team up with Baron Corbin, but Baron Corbin was so pissed off because of the camera crew that Sami Zayn got following him, and that came into play when they lost the match. We got Daniel Bryan in a backstage segment with Kayla Braxton, all of which led to Edge interrupting, and once again WWE is teasing an Edge versus Daniel Bryan match. Before the main event, we get Seth Rollins coming out, but you know Seth Rollins doesn't wrestle on Fridays anymore. Him moving to SmackDown has probably been the best thing, honestly, because it's not a 3-hour show, so they can't give Seth Rollins a full segment and a full match more often than not. So we get a typical Seth Rollins promo. This time, of course, he's trying to convince Cesaro to join him on his vision, to embrace the vision. He keeps saying we, but we don't necessarily know who is we because it's just him in the ring telling Cesaro to join him, but nonetheless it's Seth Rollins, so you know you gotta pay attention to everything that he says. Seth Rollins gives Cesaro 1 or 2 weeks for him to make the right decision, in which Cesaro simply replied by grabbing Seth Rollins by the leg and giving him a massive Cesaro swing for well over a minute. And it was incredible because Seth Rollins was still holding the microphone and telling him to put him down, even though he's technically already down. He just happened to be swinging all around. And for the main event match, it is Daniel Bryan versus Jey Uso. Not necessarily a surprise here, but we don't get a decisive winner. Daniel Bryan and Jey Uso fought it out back to back, a really good match, but in the end it was so a double count now. All of which leads to Roman Reigns coming out and beating Daniel Bryan before turning his attention to Jey Uso and berating him. Daniel Bryan then put Roman Reigns on the yes lock, but ended up beating a super kick by Jey Uso. Roman is upset, so he goes on for the spear on Bryan, then applies the guillotine and puts Daniel Bryan to sleep. So that Universal Championship match that is supposed to be happening at Fastlane wasn't confirmed this week because technically Daniel Bryan was supposed to win that match in order to get the opportunity. But of course, this is all part of storyline. That match is still set to take place at the event. Anyways, guys, I thank you for joining. If you enjoyed, found it informative, don't forget to elbow drop it and hit those notifications. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'll catch you on the next one, so stay savage.